Welcome back. You're watching HFO-TV. HFO-TV is co-sponsored by the construction, repair, and restoration firm J.R. Johnson, the real estate law firm Baljanik LLP, the tax deferral accommodator Butler Exchange Group, the mortgage banking firm Gantry Incorporated, and forensic building consultants providing building structural science services.
Welcome back to HFO TV. I'm Greg Frick, partner at HFO Investment Real Estate. And today we have with us Starr again, president of J.R. Johnson. He's been here many times. Thank you for taking the time to do this again.
Thanks for inviting me. I always have a good time speaking with you.
I think today we're going to talk a little bit about something most owners are familiar with, maybe not as familiar as they should be, but that's the roof of their property, kind of some of the issues we see, how to mitigate that, how to manage that, some of the processes. So I know you guys, people that aren't familiar with J.R. Johnson, extensive experience in multifamily, in maintenance, maintaining of existing properties. You know, they're not really doing ground-up construction, but dealing with it once it's built, soup to nuts in terms of the maintenance and fixing of problems. So thank you again for coming in here. Let's talk a little bit about, roofs and in the Pacific Northwest, the uniqueness of, some of the things. This isn't like we're in Arizona where you got typically HVAC systems and it's not a commercial roof, but what are some of the things that you see on a regular basis in terms of maybe things that owners should maybe pay attention to that would either increase the life of the roof or mitigate surprises?
Well, I think one of the main things is getting up on the roof and having it inspected periodically.
Right.
Even a brand new roof, you're going to want to get up there on a yearly basis and have a professional look at it and just make sure that, a shingle hasn't blown off or anything like that can cause a leak, or gutters aren't plugged, or leaves stacked up in the corner of a valley or something like that. So get up there and inspect the roof and make sure it's in good shape. Do it on an annual basis, right? And then at the same time, not only do you want to inspect the top of the roof, you want to inspect the bottom side of the roof if you can. So get into your attics as well at the same time. And
looking for airflow and things, because you can have deterioration coming from underneath, which is going to limit the life of the shingles or whatever the roofing compound is on top.
Exactly. So getting a look at the underside of the roof, a lot of times that's where you'll see water. If you have water coming in, you're more apt to see it on the bottom side of the roof than on the top side. That's where the water's supposed to be.
Right.
Right. So you'll also get a good look if you're having any organic growth in there, which there could be other issues there that need to be remediated that are causing the organic growth. So that gives you a good idea of what's happening on the underside of your roof.
Then I know we've talked about this kind of off camera a little bit about, owners buying a property or looking at a new property. The roof's been done in, say, within the last 5 years. Do they, want to make sure it was done correctly, or if there's any issues? A lot of times they're asking who did it. Do they bring that group out, or is your thought maybe to bring a non-biased third party to come get an assessment of because again, the roof is kind of the top of the whole, and if there's issues there, it's going to come all the way down.
Right. My recommendation for that would be either have another contractor look at it or an unbiased third party.
Gotcha.
There's building consultants out there that specialize in roofs. They give you a good, honest feedback of the roof and recommendations of was it installed properly, or should you plan on, the
lifespan left on the roof and things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Exactly.
And then in terms of when you're looking at the roofing and somebody brings you out there, I mean, is that the time to kind of look at capital needs on the rest of the exterior? I mean, because it's all kind of blended in together now with water walls and things of that. Is that the time when you're addressing that, or is it kind of all part and parcel to?
I always recommend doing as much at one time as you can, because you achieve economies of scale that way, for one. And for two, there is integration between the waterproofing on your vertical walls with your roofs. So the more of that you can do at one time, the more economical it is for you on a square foot basis or per unit basis. If you're looking at specifically a roof project, I would recommend taking a deep look into your attics at the same time, as well as your gutter and downspout system, because those three separate components kind of make up one cohesive system. If your attic isn't performing properly, if it's not properly ventilated, your roof isn't going to
So you could still do a great new roof on top, but if you haven't addressed underneath, you may have an issue down the road.
Yes, and a lot of times you don't know you have a roofing problem if you never inspect your attics until you're up on the roof and all of a sudden you almost step through it.
Right.
That's because it's failing from the inside out.
Right.
So that's why it's important to get a look inside the attics on a periodic basis, because you may see some things that you don't see otherwise.
Which brings up a question in terms of getting bids on work done. You can get a bid, and like I said, if they're not looking underneath it, so we're going to redo the shingles, and this is how much it's going to be for the material. If you're not really addressing if it's airflow or additional venting, you may be missing the root cause of why your 3-year roof only lasted 20 years, so to speak.
Exactly. Yeah. You're essentially just repairing the effect and not the cause of the problem.
Got
right?
it.
By replacing your roof on a more frequent basis than what you're supposed to. So yeah, get into the attics, check your venting. Many times, especially on older properties, bath fans and dryer fans, or they're just run up in the attic and kind of pointed towards a vent, right? Well, that's warm, moist air that's just essentially being blown inside the attic, which can cause either elevated heat temperatures, right, which can damage your roof, especially during the summer, or moisture, which is going to lead to mold and decay and other problems. So the venting is critically important to ensure that your roof lasts as long as it's supposed to.
And do you guys typically recommend, I know we've talked a little bit about like zoning, the code for the roof. Is it usually, behooves an owner to go ahead and, do the additional venting? Because again, in our experience, it's typically I haven't seen composite shingles fail so much from the outside. It's typically something going on underneath.
Correct.
And it's lack of air movement and moisture. It means that, hey, maybe step up additional venting. Maybe it's a code, but maybe do additional to cover that issue down the road. It just depends.
Well, there's different kinds of venting, right? There's the venting where you're actually drawing air into the attic and then back out, right? So you definitely want to do that to code. There's not a whole lot of advantage of doing more for that, right? Okay. But then there's also the venting of your interior HVAC system and getting it out of the building, right? So that's where we're talking about putting dedicated stem vents on the roof that you actually connect the pipe to, the duct.
For the bath fan or the dryer.
Yeah, so the air never goes in the attic. It
goes right out.
All the way out. And then there's value to insulating those ducts as well, right? Because that's metal. The air is coming from a heated space. Once it hits the attic, it's an unconditioned space. If it's, especially with dryer vents, there's a lot of moist air in those. The water can condense on those pipes in the attic when that warm air hits that cold air, and it can create a lot of moisture in there. In fact, a lot of times a tenant will complain of mold or something on a ceiling, or during a turn you notice mold on a ceiling, and you get up there, and the cause of that mold on that ceiling is because of moisture
getting into the attic
that had condensed on a dryer vent that wasn't insulated, and it's essentially raining in there. They can create a ton of moisture.
Right. So your recommendation is not only get on the outside of the roof, walking it, but getting up, if you can, in the attic and making sure things are venting the way they should, and the air is getting and moving and the moisture is getting out of that area.
Yeah, because depending on how bad the problem is, you may end up doing that work anyways. You just hadn't planned for it. Right? So to limit the risk of having change orders during a project, the more information that you can gather before you go into the project, the better off you're going to be. Because at least we can plan and put together some allowances that we think that, okay, you may want to set aside this pool of money for tight lining of ducts, or replacing plywood, or fascia boards behind gutters, the types of things that owners, if they've had a property for any length of time or a number of properties and they've replaced roofs, they're familiar with those additional costs. So it's better to be prepared going into the project than have to figure out in the middle of the project.
Gotcha. And in doing that, like you said, doing it at the same time makes all the sense. If you're just putting new roofing material on top of a bad system, it's going to, the length of time that roofing material is going to maintain its useful life is going to go down, and it's, it's kind of band-aiding the problem, so to speak.
Exactly.
So from a investor standpoint, we've talked about this. They're looking at a building, or they've had a building for a while. They can, call you. You can have your team come over and, not just give an assessment of the roof, but kind of the whole envelope system as to what needs to be addressed. Maybe it's not today, maybe it's not tomorrow, but plan for this down the road, or when the roof is going to be replaced in 7 years, we may want to look at doing this.
Yeah. give us a call. We'll have one of our roofing experts go out there, walk your roofs. If possible, get into attics as well. Look at those, and we can give you a professional opinion on your roofs. Whether there may be some areas we suggest, hey, you need to treat this right now, or then give you a plan of 3, 5, 7 year plan if whatever the plan is for maintaining or replacing your roofs.
Gotcha. Are there systems on the roofing that are, I want to say red flags, but you looked at is it we had. Back in the 60s, a lot on the residential side, a lot of flat roofs. And, are you seeing things in terms of in the industry that's changing? Is solar panels affected? Are you seeing owners in this market doing solar panels on top of roofs more so? Or
there is more solar. There are more green roofs.
Okay.
A lot of that is more on the commercial style apartment buildings.
Right.
But they are there. They are becoming more prevalent. But also the technology and the science behind roofs is also getting better. So I think contractors and architects and building consultants have a better idea of what actually works with these systems. So I don't think we're seeing the same problems that we used to on the older buildings when we started adding these systems.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you for taking the time to tell us about this. I guess we said this is a very important component of your building, and if it's not addressed or at least have an idea of what may be expected down the road, it can lead to a lot of problems. And again, we've dealt with J.R. Johnson a lot on a lot of projects. They're very thorough and they're very good, and it's they can kind of go soup to nuts or specifically, but as you mentioned, just looking at the exterior of a roof probably doesn't give you the full story of really what's going on. So thank you for taking the time to do this.
Thank you.
All right, we'll see you next time on HFO-TV.
Our entire office specializes in multifamily real estate, making HFO the largest multifamily brokerage in the Pacific Northwest. Your success is our passion. Build your legacy with HFO. Call 503-241-5541 or visit our website at hfore.com for more information.